Welcome to the show. This is a very special episode because it celebrates our 6-month anniversary. So far, we've had 26 episodes on everything from nutrition to exercise to mental health and injuries and illness. So today we're going to look back at some of the most impactful information our guests have provided. Each segment's going to deal with a different area of health. First, we'll start with exercise, then we'll talk mental health, then nutrition, and finally we'll speak to our doctor friends about some of the health conditions we've covered so far. It's a full episode, so let's get to it. In one of our first episodes, we talked with Dane Woodland, who's a personal trainer, and Vic Sajpal about some of the tips that they think are most relevant for us when we're exercising at home.
Each individual has to train differently. You have to train within, your goals, your physical ability, whether you're dealing with chronic illnesses and that sort of stuff. And I would say for most people, you just start with 1 or 2 exercises. Like, say today I'm going to do sit-ups and maybe add a little bit of push-ups, or maybe, hold a plank or something like that, and then slowly build up and add each exercise. And then it depends on your level of training. If you're a person who goes to the gym every day, yeah, sure, go pick 15, 20 exercises. So I think it's got to be modified to the individual. I bet you Dane could tell you all the exercise you could do to make a circuit, a variable on a day. And that's where he would come in. And, depending on your level, okay, you're good for 3, you're good for 10, you're good for 20, and, change it around. So, but I think the key concept is just get out, start doing stuff. And, depending on where you started prior to this, all this stuff that's been going on, and just carry on, and I'll keep you healthy and mentally and physically.
Yeah, I think that I would echo a lot of what Vic said. The variety of movement is so important. And I think sometimes that can, overwhelm people because they want to know, what's right for them, or what's the best, or what should I be prioritizing. But it is really a blend of all of those things, and taking into consideration, what your daily needs are. So if you're not, participating in high-intensity sport, you might not need to train like an Olympic athlete, but maybe you just need enough ability to reach your hands up over your head and, open the cupboard door, or carry your kid around, or, complete your daily tasks. So taking a good stock at what it is you do on a daily basis, and then kind of letting your training kind of be shaped around that so that you're able to be supported in whatever goals you might have, and also, again, in whatever it is that you do as you go about your life.
In our episode on corporate wellness, Paul McCloskey talked about his personal approach to achieving wellness goals, while Veronica Marston spoke about the trends she's seeing in the corporate wellness space, in particular for physical activity.
We're very clear in terms of our personal objectives, where we wanted to get to. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to be healthy, we wanted to be fit. And frankly, through our lives, we've traveled around the world, we've lived in lots of different environments. And we wanted to be able to continue to be as active as that in retirement. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to, there's so many stories you hear of people who've worked all their lives, retired, and then, in a very short time become ill and then can't enjoy all those things they've been putting off. Mm-hmm. So we're very clear about our personal objectives. We wanted to be healthy, wanted to be fit, and able to do the things and continue to do the things that we enjoyed. I think diet came later. And there are some great resources online where you can, analyze, at a very simple level what you eat and look at the balance of what you're eating. Frankly, that opened my eyes, and I started to change not only what I was eating, but when I was eating it. So it wasn't just a matter of calorie counting. It was looking at, the balance of protein and carbohydrates and fiber and everything else. Once I had a good understanding of that, I had a pretty good sense of what meals I could eat and maybe the treats I could have or shouldn't have, and was able to incorporate them. Then I think the next stage for me was around exercising in a manner which gave me better all-round workout. I think all of us can be guilty of doing the things in exercise or in life that we enjoy and neglecting everything else. And frankly, having a trainer, somebody who could work alongside and help me with my objectives, introduce me to different exercises, and kind of, as I walked through the door, kind of assess whether this was going to be a tough day or an easier day. That was really, really helpful. And I've got a kind of inventory now of workouts that I can call upon.
One of the key trends that I'm seeing is people doing more with their families. Like, I look outside my office window, and particularly if I'm sitting here on a weekend, I cannot believe the number of families that I see out walking, cycling, skateboarding. As a matter of fact, and I don't know what it's like in Newfoundland, but in Ontario, you cannot buy a bike. If you wanted to buy a bike tomorrow, you would probably be on a wait list for earliest November, December of this year. So that's been a really interesting trend, and we're finding that there's more of an interest for family fitness activities. So one of our, a lot of our staff are actually teaching we call them fam jam sessions. So it's little exercise classes that you can actually do with your family. And those have been really popular because people want to do things together, and they're with their families a lot more. But their family is their bubble, and they're looking for things. They're looking for opportunities of things that they can do together. So I think that's been a really positive trend.
In another episode, we spoke to Shane Monahan, local fitness expert who specializes in seniors' health. He talked about the importance of having the right guidance. We also talked with Ross Travers, who's a gardening expert, and he shared the value of getting outside as an alternate form of healthy physical activity.
No matter what you're doing, make sure you get some instruction.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to come, see me. Well, I'd love that, but
Yeah.
There's lots of information out there. Make sure your source is reliable, that you're getting your exercises from or workouts, that type of thing, somebody reputable. And just make sure it's something that you're going to be able to do consistently and actually progress with. Because at the end of the day, you never want to do anything aimlessly without an end result in mind.
Right.
Yes, there's no question about the health benefits of working outside in the garden, because it's been shown that gardening is a great reliever of stress. If you're growing something and watching it grow, tending to it, and that you tend to forget about some of your worries and that sort of thing. Then the other thing, of course, is the exercise, because there's many studies showing that exercise, which is not strenuous exercise, but really improves your well-being. For me, especially after a long winter with relatively not so much activity, then getting out into the garden and that really gives you a boost. The studies that have been done on gardening, there's no question about the health benefits.
Lastly, for exercise, we had a huge focus on enjoying nature, and we talked to adventurer Renee Ritter about what he feels the benefits of exercising outdoors are, as well as Elke Detmer, who is a founder of the East Coast Trail. We even went mountain biking with Adam Churchill, who shared how that sport is good for both your body and your mind.
You would expect somebody who's like, okay, I'm going to start hiking this summer. I'm going to get out. I'm going to start hitting the trails that I've heard about my whole life living in Newfoundland. What would they expect to see for changes in their health and their fitness if they started getting out there?
Yeah, I can only obviously speak for myself, but for me personally, I find that getting out there and becoming more active is, I see the weight drop off fairly readily. I'm always happy to see that. I just find that my mood is better. My level of energy is higher than if I'm stuck in an office for 2 weeks doing paperwork and strategic plans. So, it's definitely a physical and a mental benefit for sure. It's, equates to sleeping better. I come home and I sleep way better if I've been outside all day than if I've been in the office all day. So, it's a multifaceted kind of benefit for me personally.
I think sometimes people I've seen a lot of people in the trail. I hike a lot myself, and I've seen a lot of people. I think it's one of their first summers hiking. Mm-hmm. Should they be intimidated by it? Is there ways to start off easy and then get into it a little bit more advanced?
Well, what I do with my hikers when they come here, like I said, they come from all over the world, but mostly from Canada, like mostly from Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, sometimes from Nova Scotia. But I really give them a test usually. My test hike is from here to Cape St. Francis. It's called moderate. Mm-hmm. It's not too easy. It's not too difficult. Mm-hmm. And you can come back on the dirt road.
Right.
So far, everybody has managed to get to Cape St. Francis and come back on the dirt road. Some people, it was not enough. They wanted to do more. And now that we have, another option, you can go on to Cooper Cove. Like, it's really nice. It has options. Mm-hmm. And others were saying, oh, no, this is a bit much. So I know the next few days, some people, are like a 4-hour hike is good for a day.
Yeah.
And others want to do more.
I got you. Why is the seat not padded at all? That comes to you building the padding yourself. Maybe I've been away from the gym a little too long. All right, Adam, this is a health and wellness show, so obviously health is a big aspect of this. What are some of the benefits people get from this?
So, I mean, to be completely honest, the health benefits are kind of secondary to me. Like it's the fun, the adrenaline, the challenge that really drives me out here. But the health benefits, you almost don't even notice that you're exercising.
Right.
And so you get great cardiovascular training. It's a full body workout. So, a lot of people think that it's all in your legs, but really mountain biking, when you're navigating, some of these rocky, rooty sections or off camber areas, it's all about your core and being able to kind of navigate the bike and navigate the trail and keep that balance in all different awkward positions.
There's definitely a lot of fine motor skills to keep that bike straight, especially when it's moving up and down over rocks and stuff.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
And so you can almost tailor it. So sometimes, I want to come out for a nice leisurely ride and I'll just keep my pace down. But other times, I want to, I'm using Strava. I want to go for one of those KOMs or
what's KOM? Sorry,
King of the Mountain.
Or
QOM is Queen of the Mountain.
Because I saw that on your website. Like there's everybody's loading their Strava, so it's almost like you guys have these informal competitions going on, which has to be a huge driver for people to do better and actually get fitter.
Yeah, and even just for as a driver for yourself, pushing yourself to do a little bit better, a little bit faster, and it's great for it has little segments, and you can go up and you kind of repeat them, and it pushes you to be better and to get into better shape and improve your fitness.
Mental health affects over 80% of us throughout our lifetime. We've been very lucky to have some amazing guests on talking about this important topic. In this segment, Jesse Sterling will walk us through the benefits of meditation and relate his own personal experiences with the recent pandemic. And then we'll hear from Reggie Lawrence of Satori Elite Athletics, who explains why mindfulness should be a part of our day-to-day lives.
I think you're absolutely right. This is the most stressful, uncertain time of our lives. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, of the lockdown, of the shelter in place, there was a little bit of a spirit of, look, if you don't learn a second language and how to play an instrument and get a six-pack, you're just a loser. You don't have your act together. You've been waiting for this free time your whole life, and here's the free time. What are you going to do with it? I'm really happy that the emphasis isn't on that anymore, because I have been so emotional during these past 6 months. I've gone through denial. I've gone through a lot of anger that the situation was happening, and I can't take my 2-year-old daughter to the zoo and to the beach, and how can hiking trails be closed? And then went into a real depression for a couple of weeks. And I'm just finally at that acceptance place now. The point being is that you are allowed to feel stressed out by this. This is a stressful, uncertain situation. But what I always remind myself is this I hear my teacher's voice in my head saying, the world has never offered peace. The world has always been a place of struggle, of gain, loss, up, down, victory, defeat, happy and sad. So it's just the carousel is spinning a little crazier and a little wilder than usual, but it's still that whole dance of illusion, the dance of the Maya, as they call it in India. All that is still going on with the world. So it makes it even more important than ever to take those couple minutes a day to climb inside yourself and take the journey. Because if we're financially unstable, it doesn't cost anything to do. We can't be with other people. This is something you can do by yourself. So don't try to be a perfectionist. The most important thing is just to try it. Sit comfortably, close your eyes. You have 2 eyelids to close, 2 lungs to breathe deep, and just take 2 minutes. You'll feel wonderful. And you'll see that 2 minutes will grow to 5, will grow to 7. Soon you'll be wanting to do it first thing in the morning and the last thing before you go to bed and throughout the day, just to rest your nervous system even our eyes, which spend so much time on computer screens now, giving your eyes a break. Oh, you'll just feel great. I encourage everyone to try it. And if just one person starts meditating based off my talk, oh, you've made me so happy. Mission accomplished.
You were one of the few people that did recognize what Satori meant when you wrote to me, when you saw, I like your name. So a lot of people didn't know, but when you research it, it says to be aware. So with nutrition, it gives you the awareness to start paying attention to what you eat. When you do activities, whether it's even just walking down the street, which I do frequently and I teach people here, is to pay attention to your posture as you walk. Pay attention, you can start from the bottom up, which is usually a good way. How does your heel hit? How does your ankle move? How does your knee move? How does your hip move? And then by the time you get to the top, you're really doing this right, and you've discovered your own body and yourself, all that things. So that comes from Satori, or waking up. So instead of walking down the street and being mindless, which is what we've been trained to do basically, you start to pay attention. And when you're driving on the street, just the fact of, if you put down the window and feel the wind, just for the act of feeling the wind, you're waking up. And you're starting to participate more in life instead of react to life, because life can throw everything and you got to react. And then as soon as you start waking up into your workout or into your biking or into your driving or into brushing your teeth, everything, the more you wake up, the more healthy you get, because you're releasing all these stresses of thinking about got to do something or what happened then, and analyzing. Everyone's so detached from what's really around them. And the easiest way, if anyone wants to know how, is to just use your senses. So at any point, say, what is that? What do I hear right now? Just what is it that you hear? Listen, it could be the lights buzzing. And you say, what do I feel? So when you're driving, you put down the window, you're feeling the wind. You use your senses. When you eat, are you paying attention? Are you taking your time? Are you enjoying it? Or are you talking and not listening or doing work? So the biggest thing that I think that I could ever offer anyone really is what we are, which is just wake up and learn how to do that.
Music has transformative qualities that can change our state of mind. So who better to talk about it than Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter and mental health advocate Amelia Curran, along with Donnie Cody, musician and creative mind behind DC Design House. Both of these talented musicians are co-founders of the mental health advocacy group, It's Mental.
Can you tell me about the medicinal value and like the value the music can bring to people during, stressful times?
It's no newsflash to anyone that music is good for you, and everybody loves music. And that healing power of music is so very real. And it doesn't mean playing music. It doesn't mean writing your own songs. It doesn't have to mean any of that. Not that you couldn't. I mean, really, you can get a degree in songwriting, but I don't know why you would. The thing is, music is good for you. Anyway, every evening here, me and the toddler have a dance party to whatever is on the radio or whatever, Motown collection I've got going on. We have a dance party every evening. Sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes she doesn't want to. We do it anyway, and we certainly feel better for it. This is the power of music, right? Music is putting that in our lives. And I would suggest dance parties in your home, even by yourself. All this dance like nobody's watching, from however long ago, that's real now. This is that moment. This is that moment for you to dance like nobody's watching. And I think you should do it every day. It's really good for you. And like they say in many recovery rooms, it's the moments when you really don't want to do it that it's the most important for you to do it. And that means go outside for a walk when you least want to, and have a little boogie in your kitchen when you least want to. And that is really healing.
Back to what you were saying about music and how important it is for us all. I think it's critical. My friend can sing. She can't play an instrument. She can't write a rhyme, but she can play me in stereo. And when she said it to me, I laughed.
I play that one
That's
too.
the funniest thing I've ever heard.
You have any stories or any examples of like when you've seen music be transformative for people for their mental health? Like
oh my
an
God.
example?
Yes.
No? Go for it.
So many. Every time you see someone entranced by a performance they're watching, when you see someone shed a tear at the song they're hearing, when you see someone read or recite a line of a famous song and you see the connection and feel the connection in their voice, that's music. That's, to me, powerful.
World-class adventurer and professor T.A. Loeffler knows a thing or two about the power of nature for our mental health. She was joined by Dr. Hassan Khalili, who's also a world traveler, and shared his professional perspective on what we can do to stay mentally well during challenging times.
You had sort of a real eye-opening experience when you were out in nature. T.A., what do you see when you look over these amazing vistas from on top of a mountain? Like, what does that do for you?
I think it reminds me of my place in the world. Sometimes I often feel very small when I'm out in the out seeing those amazing landscapes, but I also feel very big. I get in touch with the vastness of our world and often return with a sense of huge amount of possibility. And what's interesting is I was thinking about this yesterday as I was out for a ski up in Pippi Park, that for me, sometimes I get it in those amazing big landscapes like Antarctica, and sometimes I get it in the back of Pippi Park. So there's also a sense of renewal and possibility. And sometimes I just like to look at the blue sky, and it kind of brings a sense of hope. And it's definitely a huge part of stress reduction for me.
Dr. Khalili, we were talking about negativity and how nature can help sort of reduce that negativity in our day-to-day. Let's just continue where we started off and tell us a little bit more about that.
You know, when we are, our brain, especially subconscious brain, filled up with problems and past problems and worry for the future and all of these things, then our body keep getting 911 calls. So my body get tensed up, and that's the reason a lot of we start eating junk food. We start eating booze, drinking booze in order to go to calmer state. So we're all looking for that calmer state. When we go to nature, whatever it is in trees and in nature, in land, in birds and in the air, whatever it is, we pull those negative energy out of us. Probably you heard. I heard this before. Nature deficit disorder.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because a lot of people have nature deficit disorder, and this is similar to, because if you clogged up, we needed liquid Drano to pull all this negativity out of our system. Nature is liquid Drano. Make us, when we go to nature, especially if you smell it, if you allow and sometimes you look at a little child or little sleeping, how soundly asleep. You look at a bird, how soundly they play, because they don't have negativity in them. Negativity is a learned behavior through and the people who are negative, they think they're pessimists, they think they are realists. They are not realists. They are just negative. And especially nowadays, we hear more negativity in technology and the TV media added to it. Acknowledge that we are all victim of this, but don't validate them. Instead, use any possibility to make it better.
You'll hear me say this a lot, but nutrition is easily one of the most complex topics in wellness. We had some amazing guests share some tips, tricks, and science around how you can eat better. Our first guest on the topic was Adriana Smallwood. She's a registered dietitian, and she visited us a few times to talk about nutrition. In one of those conversations, she talked about the food guide and what changes have come into place since it was revised last year.
Like I mentioned in the first part of the show, the new food guide wasn't just based on food. And I'll get to that in a minute, but it was more based on the habits behind eating. And like I said, in my practice and in a lot of other dietitians' practice, we see that, it's not always the things that people are eating, but it's the habits behind them. And as a society, we're really busy. Sometimes we're skipping meals. Other times we're relying very heavily on convenience foods because, again, we're busy and we're not taking the time to eat food. And the biggest thing that we found was that food skills across Canada widely have decreased. So the ability to cook, to put ingredients together, to know what to do with those things, it's very heavily decreased in the new generation. So if you look at Canada's Food Guide now, it does absolutely talk about food and the different food groups, but also it goes into those healthy eating habits, being mindful of your eating. So making sure that when you are sitting down to the table, there's no distractions, there's no cell phones, there's no tablets, there's no TVs, because it's really hard to tune into what you're eating and focus on the food when you're being distracted. And, like I said earlier, that really impacts our ability to see when we're full. I mean, how many people have shoveled through their plate in 5 minutes and realized they're so full they're sick because they ate too fast and they weren't paying attention to what they're eating? Like, it's not an uncommon thing.
It's ironic. When I first started, I was a personal trainer, and between clients, you'd have about 5 minutes, and so I ate 9/10 of my meal standing up and within 5 minutes and just getting it in, and I had to train myself to actually be more mindful when I was eating and dedicate the time to it. Yeah, I agree with that.
Exactly. So, I mean, one big thing about, healthier eating is being mindful of what you're doing. The other thing is cooking more often. So we're relying very heavily on, processed pre-cooked foods. Make your own if you don't, if you can't have the time every single day, that's fine. Everybody has at least an hour during the week, whether it's a Tuesday evening or a Sunday afternoon. You have an hour where you can sit there and you can chop a few veggies, you can clean some fruit, you can put it in little containers in the fridge, make a space in your fridge or dedicate a crisper to your snack food. So cut up some cheese for crackers or wash your veggies and portion them out. Get your quarter cup measure. A quarter cup of nuts or seeds is equal to a serving. Get your quarter cup measure, make your own trail mix, pour it in those little snack size Ziploc baggies, put it in the cupboard in a little area that you can designate for snack things. It might seem like not very much time, but in an hour you can prep enough stuff that it definitely makes a huge impact in the rest of your week.
Who in Newfoundland and Labrador doesn't know Alan Haako? But what you may not know about him is that he takes his wellness really seriously. Whether it's growing his own food or sticking to a nutrition plan, he talked about the challenges he faced when learning how to eat better. I guess the key fundamentals that people need to pay attention to. Obviously, moderation is one of your beliefs.
Moderation is not necessarily a belief, but it's one of
the necessity. Yeah, great.
It's one of the guidelines.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
It's definitely not one of my strong suits, but it's one you got to follow. And it's really tough to understand. It's like a train track or something. You're riding, and you're just so used to going that one way that it's so impossible for you to conceive of another way that is like just slightly different, but so much more beneficial for you. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to get your head around the fact that, but it is pretty simple. When I explain to people, it's like, don't eat more than the size of your fist in carbs for lunch. Don't eat any for supper.
Yeah.
Don't have 300 almonds.
Yes.
Have 30.
Yeah, right.
And you know what I mean? Like, people think, I'm hungry, so I ate 378 almonds.
Yeah, exactly.
It is healthy, but so moderation is huge. It's like portioning out. The other thing that is a part of the groundbreaking sort of thing for me is that you eat small portions many times throughout the day to keep yourself. And omega-3s is like mind blowing to kind of wave off that hunger. And you're not hungry. We're so used to, particularly here, my family growing up. I mean, it was like the Simpsons, right? Not my mother, of course, but the siblings of my old man. We'd sit down for supper and it was like, and it's hard to kind of train yourself out of that. Mm-hmm. So now, and you don't know when the signals are to tell you that you're not full because you're so fast. You're just so busy into it. So training yourself to eat slower.
Next, we chatted with Dr. Farrell Cowell, who studies food addiction, along with registered dietitian Jessica Tong. And finally, we'll end our nutrition segment foraging with local food expert Sean Dawson as we search for local edible plants along the coast in Pooch Cove.
Farrell, why don't you walk us through what makes specific foods so addictive?
Yeah, it's a really great point. Very often people don't realize why they're drawn to certain types of foods, and we're not going to say food addiction is equal across the board. I know for certain individuals I've worked with, it's more sour, it's more sweet, it's more umami, it's all kinds of attributes of food that really seem to light up those centers for them. But overall, though, when we look at it, things that are heavy in sugar are causing those consequences and stating that they're more addictive than other types of foods. So, we need to make sure that we realize that the intakes of those foods are causing, again, substantial issues, and it's going to be much harder for us to kind of pull away from it. So, yeah, it's trying to find a way to kind of simplify the circumstance, but it's quite difficult. It's quite complex to think about why it is that someone's more prone to go after one food versus another, and how it is that we're addicted to those types of foods.
Yeah. Well, there are some big culprits, the fat, the sugar, and the salt. Like, let's hit those three. Like, Jessica, what are the risk factors of consuming those three nutrients in mass quantities?
I think mass quantities of these foods, they promote weight gain. And we know that, weight gain, obesity is a common risk factor for these metabolic diseases. So when we eat foods that are high in fat, sugar, salt, it drives that risk up. And another thing is that it can just cause our energy levels to plummet, which in a lot of cases, it can reduce your likelihood exercising, of moving around, which then contributes to the weight issue. So it's a bit of a domino effect. Most of the time, I find that these foods, they really don't deliver a lot of nutritional value. But again, they hit a lot of those taste receptors, those things that we are craving. It really hits those notes. So we like those foods, we get satisfaction from those foods, but really they're not doing much for us from a health perspective.
I'm definitely my expertise is on food, but food is medicine. So you know.
How'd you get into it?
I've always been into it, man. I grew up going up to my nan's on the southern shore, and she used to take me berry picking, and she used to send me out picking dandelions for Sunday dinner, and she'd blanch them all and freeze them for the year.
Where is Southern Shore?
Calvert.
Oh yeah, okay.
Everybody's foraging up there. It's just they don't call it that,
What would you tell people about the benefits for health of foraging?
Well, like I said, I've grown up being into this without knowing, so I've always been doing it. And my passion with this is really in food, like cooking and eating these things. But food is medicine, so I know I can speak for that. This by eating like this really makes me feel good. So if I eat something greasy or something now, or fast food, it really makes you not feel so hot. So it's super good for your mental health, for your body, for your soul.
Yeah, and I think we all need a little bit of it these days. In the last part of our show, we'll visit with experts in health as they talk about some important subjects and the role that health and wellness plays in the severity and incidence of these conditions. First, we'll talk with Dr. Matthew Falwell and Dr. Stephen Quigley, who are both cancer physicians.
Steve.
For sure. I mean, if there's any patients of mine that are out there listening, I think they've probably heard my spiel on this a number of times in the clinic. But essentially, when I sign people up for surgery, usually it's for marathon type surgery, operations that take 8, 9, 12 hours. And often with cancer cachexia or cancer weight loss on board, they're in a protein, in a deficient state. And so I tell people they have to increase their protein in their diet, increase their healthy food intake, really work at looking at nutrition as sort of king for getting through this problem. In addition, I request of my patients to do 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity every day leading up, before and after surgery. And there's many studies that show that even 15 to 20 minutes of exercise before a major operation can lead to decreased length of stay and improved outcomes with decreased complications. So the point of nutrition and exercise and how it relates to both physical and mental well-being heading into a major operation is not something I take lightly.
Right. Okay, so right onto that, and not only surgery, but Matt, you talked about other forms of treatment. How is somebody coming in strong? How would they fare? How would they fare better, I guess, if compared to somebody who's more healthy?
Without a doubt, try to keep people doing as much they want to be doing as possible. Don't necessarily let a disease define you. There's obviously things that you have to avoid in terms of risks if your immune system is compromised through the various chemotherapies and other treatments. But the more you can keep people doing their day-to-day and what they actually want to be doing, they'll be more compliant with treatment. They'll get through it often a little better. And it's something where as long as we get through the appropriate treatments, the outcomes should be as we expect. But if there's any barriers to any of those steps along the way, people will have worse outcomes.
Diabetes is one of the most prevalent health conditions in Newfoundland and around the world. We had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Harpreet Bajaj, who helped develop the clinical practice guidelines for diabetes in Canada. He was joined by Kevin Peters, a local business leader whose daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, who talks about their journey, not only through diabetes, but also by starting a charity based on that experience.
What are the risk factors people should really pay attention to for diabetes?
Yeah, so the weight is the major driver of type 2 diabetes, as I mentioned. There's a lot of issues that go along with the weight. Of course, we've seen obesity in every province increasing over time. If you look at Ontario or Newfoundland, or if you look at British Columbia, anywhere obesity is increasing. And the reason for that is environmental, which is that we are leading less active lives, and also we are consuming much more calories than we used to consume. Most of this is prepackaged in the fridge or at a processed like at a coffee shop. Could be Tim Hortons, McDonald's, etc. And that is probably what is driving that obesity epidemic, and then driving the diabetes type 2 epidemic as well.
What really hit me was that all the things that I was learning very quickly was healthy things for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, imagine everybody counted every carb before they ate it.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew how many carbs would be the limit. And imagine they drank more water, and imagine they manage their lifestyle to ensure that they had the appropriate amount of exercise in there. How healthy would our society be?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I kind of crossed the two together and said, well, type 1 diabetes and the challenges, but what the opportunities it could bring in a healthier lifestyle, Diabetes for a Day was born. And what further reinforced that was, as I only ate 45 grams of carbs per meal and 15 grams per snack, and absolutely no junk, no sugar, because my daughter couldn't. And this is December 1st, before Christmas.
Right.
So this is like
trial by fire.
This is work functions. This is Christmas parties. This is treats, desserts, and I'm not even having a chocolate, nothing, because I can't. My daughter can't.
Yeah.
I dropped 20 pounds
during Christmas. You're the
during
only
Christmas
human to ever do
and
that.
New Year's, right? So 2 months roll around, I'm down 20 pounds. I've always had high blood pressure, gone. No more high blood pressure medication. I started sleeping better. I started feeling better. I started getting more active. I started thinking much more clearly. And the change was so amazing, so fast. So I had to share that message. Mm-hmm. And what I did within the business community is I challenged business leaders to go on this type 1 journey with me for 90 days. And said, live like my daughter lives for 90 days, learn about how to live a healthier lifestyle, and see what happens.
The last few guests are ones who are going to talk about something that's really important to all of us, and that's injuries. We had Dr. David Bain, stretching expert, and Jill Holden, yoga instructor, to talk about the importance of flexibility. And then we chatted with free skier Dave Whalen and physiotherapist John Scaplin about recovery from injuries, which can be daunting for many people.
We'll start with you, Dave. Maybe you could take it from your perspective why stretching is important for folks.
Well, stretching is quite important for everybody, and you don't have to be an athlete to worry about stretching. Most of us have quite shortened muscles and tendons, and that affects our, what I'm going to call our functional performance. Now, normally, again, when you think of athletes, you think of them sprinting or doing things, but in our everyday lives, we have to reach for different things out of the cupboard in the kitchen, or we might have to reach up and step over 2 stairs or over a rock. Even just bending over and picking up a book or a piece of paper, you can hurt your back. So if you're too stiff, and you don't do you're not thinking one day and you just bend over at the waist and try and pick up a book off the floor, you can hurt your back. So it's really important to stretch just for those very simple things, because stretching will reduce that resistance to the movement. Stretching helps to relax your muscles and it'll decrease the possibility that you can injure your muscles and your tendons.
Right. Jill, you have a different background. What do you think the benefits of stretching are for folks?
I think for stretching, we can think of it more, or in addition to the physical side of things. So yes, as Dave touched on, if we don't use it, we kind of lose it. And especially as we age and perhaps our lifestyle or the fact that we tend to sit or be in a flexion posture for a lot of our days. So, we can think about it from definitely the physical side of things, but also you can think about it from the mind stretch. So if you are taking time to work on yourself and to physically be active and to feel better from, taking a simple stretch out of your desk during your workday, a conscious breath, that does so much more than just the physical side of things. So you can think of it as stretching your mind and your outlook on life. The more active and the more flexible you become, you feel that in every aspect of your being. So I feel it's physical, it's the mental health, sometimes it's spiritual, stretching in terms of how you can change your outlook to look at things from a different perspective.
You went through your rehab. Can you walk us through what a day or a week looked like as you were recovering?
Yeah, it was challenging. I mean, my recovery was quite long. It was the better part of 2 years, really, when it was all said and done. To be honest, to this day, I still have to maintain my injury. There's still a lot of stretching and strength training involved to this day, and this is 5 years later. But at the beginning, it was very heavy. When I was repatriated back to Canada, I was at St. Clair's Hospital 5 days a week for anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a day with their physio departments. And then away from that, I was, massage and physio a couple other times, as well as 2 or 3 hours of my own time at home, kind of doing my own exercises. That progressively changed over time as you kind of get better, and people actually kind of need to understand this, is as you get better, then you're going to be less reliant on your physiotherapist and your support group and more reliant on yourself. And that change, to be honest, was quite difficult for me at first, because I felt like I was gaining so much out of the physio and all my therapies that when I started pulling back, I actually had a little bit of a hard time with that. And there was a bit of a mental adjustment there that had to happen for me. And that mental adjustment continued.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it comes back to that concept that you mentioned this there earlier about, people with more chronic pain, they just sort of live with it. They just assume this is how I have back pain because that's just how it is. Everybody around me seems to have it too, but you don't have to live in pain. That's the big part of that. And the stages that people go through, absolutely, is that there's a certain amount often of improvement just by keeping on the move, that sort of thing. But from there, things can slow down to a certain extent, and you need a bit of education, and you need to physically trigger and get the body moving to start to have that improvement kick back in again. And a lot of that comes down to other clinicians having other, whether it be physiotherapists, chiropractor, massage therapists, somebody like that involved. And I kind of tell people as well, keep in mind with these things that when you're looking for a therapist, a few things I like to point out to people is that, look for somebody who's from day one discussing a discharge plan and what's going to happen to get the person moving forward. And also looking at somebody who has an active component to their treatment, because we've been talking about here, you need to take a part of that as the client. And if your clinician is not giving you anything to do at home, that's usually a bit of an indication that it maybe is a bit of a slow recovery. That active component, the research states that very clearly. You need to be involved in your own care. That's a huge part of it.
Well, that's today's show, and that's our first 6 months summed up. We've had some amazing guests, and hopefully we've all learned something along the way. Thank you for letting me be your guide through wellness. I look forward to the next 6 months. Well, I'm your host, Dr. Mike Wahl, and we'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Health and Wellness Show on your VOCM.